Shalom. Friends, we are here once again, and once again, you and me are having a special guest. He's a very special person. The man who, with his wife, have become a messianic legend in Ukraine. It's just me kind of provoking him. And it's okay when a brother like him, after compliments like that, would try to dodge them or ignore them or simply acknowledge them. Yeah, because someone's gotta be a legend. So Rabbi Alexey, he's the man that unites Eastern, Western, Northern, and Southern Ukraine. Because Southern, Eastern Ukraine was the place where his ministry began. And this was a start for many, many other believers and future ministers, congregations. Then they moved to Chernivtsi city. And they began a new stage of their ministry together with other people. And it allowed Alexey and his wife to enter the Messianic movement all the way, finally. And Western Ukraine is where he was born. Okay, now please tell us your story, because I cannot come up with a legend for you. Yeah, it's just Dr. Bomko. At dawn of this legend, Rabbi Boris would say something like, "Can I call you Dr. Bomko, not Rabbi?" Yeah, it was said with all respect, yeah. Yeah. Everything that was in the beginning of a Messianic movement in Ukraine was somehow connected to Rabbi Boris Grisenko. And so it was me in the beginning thinking, where should I go? Whether I should go or not. To Chernivtsi, because usually people in Ukraine thinking about traveling to Israel or the US. So Chernivtsi, I had never been there. I had no friends, no relatives there. God had spoken about Chernivtsi so many times. And during one prayer meeting, I just said to God, what should I do? Should I go there or not? And I had a cell phone, and at that moment I was listening to all-night prayer in my earphones, and it was Rabbi's voice there, the Rabbi's voice. Go out uh, if you deny yourself. Go out. And that was the moment when I realized that I should go out. Well, this is something new. I haven't heard this one before. It was one day, me and Angela, my wife, we were there, and you asked us why did we go to Chernivtsi, and she said that it was you, Boris, the reason why we were there. Yeah, I remember now. And it was kind of start of our Messianic movement, but the very first meeting we had the house of the trade union in Kiev, and one my friend from a Baptist church invited me to go there, and she said that that was the congregation that they were going to help me, and she didn't bring me to her Baptist church, but rather she brought me to the trade union house where your Shabbat services were conducted at that moment. And so, in several months, my life was completely changed. I encountered Yeshua, I encountered my Lord. He made me turn around and go a different way. And so your time in Kiev wasn't long after that. And as I know, you went to Slaviansk. Could you please tell us about your this period of time, Slaviansk period? This period was quite radical. God showed a different side of life. I could see friends, I could see spring, and I could see life. And so it was me abiding in God's love, especially considering that God had changed my heart so much. I fell in love with Slaviansk. The last time I was there, it was 2019, when I would take my mother-in-law to Chernivtsi, and I fell in love with Slaviansk in 2000s. At that moment, it was like a blind spot of Ukraine, meaning that the place was just dull. The factories were just being ravaged. The atmosphere itself was quite depressing. But considering what God had done in my life, it was different for me. All of those things, they felt so fulfilling, so joyous, and I just didn't want to go back to Kyiv. In Slaviansk, I felt myself as home. And I was thinking, if God managed to change my life, that means that He can change anyone. There is no one whom God couldn't change. And I loved eyewitnessing the way God changes people. It was quite inspiring for me. It's so interesting that there was this kind of breakdown around you. Things weren't wholesome. But inside of you there was this kind of rising up. You were full of love, full of life, and that spring within you, what God had been doing, it would just take over all areas of your life. And what God had done, and the fact that He had placed you there, helped to not be influenced by outward circumstances. Yeah, so in the place where me and brothers lived, there were no windows. The windows were covered with with the film. Yeah, just like where we live right now, many windows are covered with films and blankets, well, because of the shock waves. The glass is broken. Yeah, my mom's place is not far from yours, and in her place, almost all windows are broken because the bomb went off not far from her place. And so, coming back to my story, it was February, no heating, it was cold, it was winter, no windows, and there was a furnace that could be lit up by coal, and we didn't have any money to buy coal. And because there was no windows, no glass, it wasn't helping. The furnace wasn't helping. Yet the radiators could go so hot that if I woke up and touched the radiator with my hand, I could get a burn. But that didn't help at all. And anyway, I was grateful for God's interference in my life. And it was very important for me at that time. But on the outside, well, it didn't seem that important.
И сейчас во многих районах, да.
Да, потому что мама, я знаю, давно поставила бойлер на всякий пожарный, потому что, дорого платить. А в Славянске горячей воды, по-моему, не было.
And in Slavics there was no hot water, no boiled water in the pipes. One had to boil it themselves. And well, Kyiv is different, but well, now not the whole Kyiv has that hot water supply, the majority of it, and so we had to boil water in a bucket. And so my ministry, how my ministry began. I knew that God wanted to change lives, and I wanted to serve, to minister to drug addicts. People who were former inmates after serving their time, they had nowhere to go. So we welcomed them to our rehab centers and we preached them and helped them. So the rehab center, I know a number of people who set free and then came to faith, repented, and they didn't just believe, because a lot of people believe in stuff, but they actually committed their lives to God. The rehab center was found by the pastor of the church I was from, Sergei Dyomin. The rehab was founded in 1994. I came to Slaviansk in 2000, and in 2001 I was kind of in charge of that center and other centers around. We started many other rehab centers, including centers for women. And for how long did that last? My ministry lasted for 7 years, up to 2007. It was that year that we moved to Chernivtsi. And so, you know for sure that God leads you to Chernivtsi. So you're there. And you had to begin from scratch. And the local church helped you out because you had nothing to start with. And you opened a rehab center there as well.
Я когда ехал в Черновцы, мне пастор из Славянска Петр Дудник.
On my way to Chernivtsi, Petr Dudnik, he is the pastor from Slaviansk, he gave me a number of the pastor in Chernivtsi, and he had wanted to open a rehab center, but he hadn't managed to do that. So when I got there, I was not alone. I had two brothers in Christ. One of them is a pastor of Christian Hope Church in Kyiv, and another one is a leader of the rehabilitation ministry, and he is one of leaders of Oleksiy Bomko Church.
Не старший пастор, не Валерий.
Дмитрий Лаюк, он
Uh,
один из
Dmi-
пастырей.
the pastor that we are talking about, the pastor of the Christian Hope Church, he's one of the pastors, not the senior pastor.
Этими братьями, моими друзьями, мы
So,
приехали
brothers in
в
Christ,
Черновцы,
my
когда
friends,
пастором стал.
we got to
И
Chernivtsi, we
вот мы
met
говорили о том, что мы
the
можем,
local pastor.
ну, я могу помочь начать это служение, но через
I said that I could
время
help
я
to
буду
start this
выполнять
rehabilitation
еще
ministry,
отдельно служение.
but I said that in time I would
Да, и самое
do my own
важное,
ministry
говорить.
outside
Все равно
of their
у вас
church. Yeah, I know that was your arrangement,
Бога, что
that
нам
you had a
начинать
clear vision from God,
еврейского
that
мессианского.
you had to become to
Да,
start a
ну,
Jewish
изначально
Messianic
было
Congregation.
не совсем еврейскую мессианскую
Well,
общину, думали
in the
отцы,
beginning, it wasn't
но
specifically a Messianic
мы думали,
congregation.
церковь должна
We
собираться
thought of it as a
субботу.
church
Мы уже
that
тогда
would do
четко
its
имели
services on
понимание,
Saturdays.
откровение о еврейских праздниках.
We had this revelation
Мы тогда
about
уже
Jewish
четко
biblical
понимали
festivals.
о том, что еврейский народ, он имеет свое
We knew
призвание
that
и предназначение.
Jewish people
Но
have
я
their
действительно,
purpose and their calling,
вот почему-то больше как-то у меня какое-то
and
понимание, если не
I
место
had this
священное, оно
understanding
начнет
that the
выглядеть
Jewish
как
Messianic Congregation
однозначно
had
как
to
синагога.
be just like
Вот
a
синагога.
synagogue.
Так.
Okay, could you please elaborate? What are you trying to say? And a little bit later you will understand why am I so curious to know
Ну вот не знаю, вот
about
такая
why
картинка у меня была, вот
Rabbi
обязательно
Alexey wanted the congregation to be of a synagogue kind. So, yes, I did want it to be a synagogue, but I didn't know how to turn it into a synagogue, synagogue style. That's why I was saying that it would be the church, but not the Jewish congregation. Maybe I was very cautious or a little bit afraid to call my ministry Jewish Messianic Congregation. But even before the congregation started, God had told me that it had to be Jewish Messianic Congregation, and that had to be the name of my ministry. And I thought, well, okay, we have the right to do that. Well, maybe it's not going to be the synagogue style, but look at Kyiv congregation. It's not really synagogue style, is it? So, well, we can do that. Who can stop us? So this was where we started. And when you formed this ministry of the rehab center, you just handed it over to somebody else. Is that so? Yes. During my time in Chernivtsi, my first years in Chernivtsi, we started 2 rehab centers, one for men, another one for women. Then there were 2 guys, one from Odessa, one from Lugansk region. And we started a rehab center. For some reason, well, there were some reasons that pastor in Chernivtsi, he did not want my help anymore. That's why we started our own center, rehab center, with those 2 guys, and we started at the time of Shavuot. That was the end of May, and we started the ministry of our congregation as well. And there were 5 of us at the first service. We had so much fun. We even had tzedakah. We did offering, and they were only 23 hryvnia, and 20 hryvnias were mine. And that was a start. We were off to a good start, and we became friends with a Baptist church, and they were very kind to give us this room in their church building, and this is where we had our services for the next 8 months. And we're still very good friends with this church, with the pastor of this church. We visit each other, we preach at each other meetings, so we are brothers. And I keep mentioning with a grateful heart that Baptist Church played a very special role in this establishment process of the Jewish Messianic Congregation. And I believe that at that time there was another Jewish Messianic Congregation, and it's a great thing that there is more than one. Yes, that's a very good point, and I also wanted to say that there should be more than one Jewish Messianic Congregation by the mercy of God, just like there are many evangelical churches. So there should be enough of Jewish Messianic congregations, especially if there is a good amount of Jewish people who live in this or that city or town. And do you remember a visit that Jonathan Bernis once paid? And at that time, Kyiv congregation was 4 or 5 years old. And he said that this big association, this union, alliance of Jewish Messianic congregations, they wanted to start another Jewish congregation. And I asked, and he told me, well, I said that Jonathan Bernis said that I wanted to ask you, Rabbi Boris, first, before, getting back to them on that. Well, when I heard that, I started laughing, and Jonathan was a bit confused because he didn't understand why I was laughing. And I said, well, Kyiv is a huge city. There are so many Jewish people here. So many other missionaries can come and start Jewish Messianic congregations. And Jonathan went, well, but this is where you do your ministry. And I said, but I'm not the master of this city. No, I mean, anyone can come and do their ministry here and serve the Jews. And Rabbi Alexey asks, you refuse to be the monopolist, right, here in Kyiv? But I mean, this is just think about it. You have something from the Lord that God entrusted you with, and you're trying to just reach, all those territories and that go beyond your faith. And Jonathan asked me, okay, well, if they start, or when they start, what is your reaction going to be? And I said, well, we'll be helping them in every way possible. And of course he was smiling, and he tried to explain me, the way Americans do things, the way Americans do ministry. especially Jewish ministry.
И
And he said, "This is really," Jonathan asked, "this is really what you think?" And I said, "Well, of course. How can I do otherwise? How can I think otherwise?" And so he told that alliance, he told those people that it was okay to start a Jewish congregation in Kiev, another one, but, well, they didn't get through with that for some reason. Well, maybe they did, you just maybe did not notice, because I heard that there were like at least 10 Messianic congregations in Kiev. Well, yeah, we have a friend in Berlin, Vladimir Pikman, and a great Jewish minister from Moscow, Pinchas is his name. They came to me and asked for help. And they asked me if it was possible to gather together Messianic rabbis of Kyiv congregations. So we did our part. We did gather them, and I was there, and some ministers from Kyiv congregation were there, and we were just sitting there doing our best not to influence the fellowship that was taking place, because we were ready to organize everything and just not to join, not to be active participants, but we were asked and we were invited to be there. And this is where I saw the representatives of at least 10 congregations, Jewish Messianic congregations, and their services, they were very specific. Like the style of their services, it resembled the style of Baptist churches. I could say that they were overly modest in their expression. So the congregation in Chernivtsi began its existence. Yes, that's right. And we did start the Jewish ministry in Chernivtsi. And we would put invitations to our Shabbat services on the lampposts all around the town. The adverts were printed on green and orange pieces of paper. And praise the Lord, people there, they read what is what hangs on the lampposts. Really? Do they? Well, at least at the time, back in the day, they did read those ads, and they started coming. Yeah, there is a joke. Well, if you put your ads on the lampposts, well, the people who are reading those things, they would be the members of your congregation. Well, this sounds intimidating, doesn't it? Because you this information must have been intimidating for you, and if that's so, I mean, if that was the case, you were supposed to go and take those ads off those lampposts. Well, when the war started, I had guests in my home, and one of the guests, he's a journalist, and he loves, those special expressions, idioms and things like that, jokes. Yeah, we're not going to talk about every single detail that was happening over the years in the Chernivtsi congregation, and but at the same time, Your wife, I know that she's very, very talented. She's a musician, and
Вот.
she's known all over the world for
Есть
her music, Jewish Messianic music.
в этой
And
Черновицкой мессианской общине.
there are so many special features, so many specifics, I would say, to this congregation in Chernivtsi. But let us talk about these past few months, the life of Chernivtsi congregation during these past few months. So this is what I want to ask you about. Number one,
Как все-таки вы решили
how did you decide to build your own synagogue building? I mean, do we have photos of your building, which is a synagogue? Well, I have a lot of them on my phone, but I'm not sure if I can share them right now. Well, yeah, we weren't planning ahead to show these pictures, but maybe our administrators, they're following us, and maybe they can find a way to show us the synagogue, Messianic synagogue in Chernivtsi, the building. Well, and if not, we'll try to do that, to show you the Messianic synagogue of Chernivtsi in the coming programs. Well, again, it wasn't our plan. It was something out of the blue. For 10 years, we rented this facility, that was a part of this big plant. It was the third floor of a building, which is a plant. Well, it used to be a plant during the Soviet times, but after the Soviet times, of course, this plant wasn't producing anything. The facilities were for rent, and we were renting a facility there 24/7. And once I had a conversation with the director of this plant, and I asked him, I mean, why are you not selling everything that there is in this plant? Like metal, why don't you sell the metal that this plant is made of, the bricks that this plant is made of? And there was so much of aluminum, and this metal, it's pretty expensive. And he was very surprised at my question, and he was like, why should I sell it? And I told him, well, I used to live in Slaviansk, and this is what people would do there. And he said, well, the time will come, and it will come in handy, everything that is here. So, and the time came, and one German firm, they rented out a number of facilities, and this same director, he wanted to see me, and he told me that they needed this facility that we used for our Shabbat services, for our ministry. And he told me that we were supposed to find something else. So we started praying, we started looking, we started, trying to find, and several months later, sometime later, the owner, the main shareholder of this plant, wanted to see me. So I met with him, and he told me, well, I've been watching you for a number of years, and before that time, before that meeting, I haven't seen him. I hadn't seen him ever in my life. I was in touch only with the director, not the owner. And he told me, well, we need this facility that you've been renting from us, but I do not want you to leave. I want you to stay here. And this is what he offered. He showed me this abandoned building with this layered roof. And he said, well, we're going to clean everything here. We're going to remove, these walls that were not supposed to be there. It was on the outskirts of the planned territory, and there were no fences, nothing. This was the home to the homeless. This was where drug addicted people would use drugs, and there were so many dogs. There were packs of dogs there, homeless dogs. And this owner told me, well, we'll fix the roof. It's not gonna leak. We'll just fix it for you, and maybe you will renovate it on the inside. And this is going to be your building. This is where you're going to have your services.
It was quite a picture for myself, and I fell for that. I thought like, well, it's just a little renovation, paint this, plaster that, and this was going to be great. So the man left for 2 weeks and came back, and he says, let's go check the place again. And I say, like, there is nothing to see. And so we go there anyway. We go, he's wearing that suit, and it's all dirt all around. And he says, I've been thinking, this is going to be a Messianic synagogue after all. And I want to do the new roofing. I want to put a great entrance door. I want to do great windows there. This is a sacred place, Messianic synagogue. And his mom is from Odessa, and he himself is from Chernivtsi. Well, the locals of that city, they are Jewish, kind of Jewish. So this was the start. I talked to my fellow brethren, like, could we do this? Could we do some bricks? Do a little fixing there. We said yeah, and though we didn't have any sponsors, there was no wealthy people in our midst. This was the start, and it was a good start. Then things slowed down. It even stopped for a year and a half. Because, he wanted to do it using his money, not the money of his company. He's not some billionaire, like spending millions of money every day. No, all of his money were invested, and the renovation costs money. And so, year and a half later, it was maybe Sukkot or some other festival, and so they delivered materials for this roof, new materials, and I was crying, thanking God, because it was a bunch of metal pipes for the roof. It was a miracle from God. It was so I was so happy. Well, There were square pipes. Have you never seen pipes like that? Haven't you been to construction?
И вот мы, когда сделали крышу, и мы уже как-то двинулись с таким вот
So
энтузиазмом. У нас
the
уже
roof was fixed.
где-то было готово.
We enthusiastically moved on.
Там сделали штукатурку во всем здании, где в зале и пристройке, где будут студии.
We did some plaster.
3 комнаты будет. Для подросткового
We planned the
будет
rooms.
чердак, я планирую сделать. И, в общем,
Like what room, which ministries will take rooms, you know, just planning. So we continued the work. We began doing renovation.
Подручными разными такими недорогими самыми материалами.
And using cheap materials, using tools that we had already had. We managed to come up with the room for services, and like when you enter the place, you would see something that was supposed to be an office, but it was a place for our Shabbat school.
Вот мы потихонечку там делали, сколько там могли, сколько финансов хватало.
We continued doing renovation, you know.
Вот этому главному акционеру Гравитона, ему вообще так все вообще.
The main shareholder of this Graviton factory, he loved things so much that he would bring his friends there, businessmen, some people from the embassy of Israel, some people from Turkey. And they would say, "Glory to the Almighty," and so they would say, "Glory to Jesus." So they loved the place, we loved the place. Then at some point, coronavirus happened and things stopped. And I'm thinking about the scripture that when Yeshua spoke about the end times, like, this is the beginning of the birth pains. And I thought, like, maybe that's it? Maybe this is the beginning? Because we'd been investing a lot of money, working hard, and it was all for nothing. And at some point, one of the brothers says, "What about a millennial kingdom? Where will Jews come and pray?" And I thought, wow, yeah, he's right. We gotta keep on working.
Конечно, да, интересно было все равно как бы наблюдать за каждым процессом, как он происходит.
It was interesting to observe every process.
Муралы, которые на стенах получились, это все предложил вот хозяин Равитона, который сам за свои деньги. Он говорит, у меня есть знакомая, которая...
A mural that you could see in the building, it was all suggested by this shareholder, and he says that I have a friend who's very good at drawing these murals. He says, could we draw something the facade.
Она рисует разные такие еврейские местечковые рисуночки такие интересные. Он такой говорит, ну мы же не местечко, мы же европейский город.
And I say, we have a lady that is really good at some like shtetl-like paintings, and he says, well, we're not some shtetl, we are a European city after all. And I say, let's pray, let me pray, and I will think about the drawing. And Chernivtsi is one of the feature things of Chernivtsi is the university. And this university is a residence of Russian Orthodox Orthodox Church's leaders' residence. And so there was this church that they were trying to build. At some point they ran out of money, and they asked for help from a Jewish synagogue of Chernivtsi. At that time, interreligious fellowship and connections were great, and the congregation said yes. They provided the necessary amount of money, but what they asked in return was to somehow mark this event. So that is why the residence of Russian Orthodox Church's leaders, there are stars of David. And you could see it on old photos, those stars of David over the entrance. Just think about it, that's Orthodox Church's like a sacred, holy place. For Russian Ukrainian speaking community, this is something incredible. And so I talked to the sister from our congregation. I asked her to draw a couple of pictures to choose from. She did, and she drew our local river, and people used to call it Jerusalem and Prut, the name of the river, because before the World War II there were so many Jews in the city, and they helped to develop the city so much. They helped to develop the city culture-wise. There were lots of patrons helping feed the hungry, and so on and so forth. And so I don't know how the shareholder arranged that, but he paid the money, he provided the place to stay for that mural artist. And so we did that picture on one side of the building, but on the other side there was no drawing, and people would say that we saw the picture on the internet, why it's not there? And I explained that, had to explain that it's from the other side. And I said that if you look closely, that's Hanukkah. On that side. And he says, but can we light up Hanukkah? And I say, well, you light up Hanukkah only on Hanukkah, but menorah can be lit up all the year round. And he says, can we do that? I say, yeah, but the roofing is already over. He called his architects. they disassembled the roof. They changed the concrete fortification there. They built like little towers out of bricks.
Вот в прошлом, вернее, году мы зажигали Хануку, у нас все круглые сутки горели свечи.
So last year, when we would light up the Hanukkah, all of the candles on the building, they burned as well. It would be nice to see the different side of that building.
На фасаде придумали рисунок, там где, ну, как Иешуа, как тень, и он к этой миноре, как свет этому миру.
And so,
И я говорю, здесь надо нарисовать Иерусалим.
so there was Yeshua, who's the light to the world of the world, on other side of the building, and I say that we gotta somehow that we gotta place Jerusalem. We gave the picture of the Golden Gate to the artist, and I say that according to the prophecy, that Mashiach is to enter the Golden Gates, and Yeshua entered the gates riding a donkey. But Suleiman, the splendid, he blocked the gates, and they are closed until now. And so now we are prophetically opening. As you can see, there is entrance on the bottom of this picture, and this entrance is kind of like you're entering the gates. So the building continued. And in January, I suggested to finish WC and bathroom unit, because we only had one WC for men and one for women. And we plan to do a WC for people in a wheelchair. And so we were also thinking about making a shower. Like if children would need to take a shower, or just in case. And we were talking like maybe we should think about something else, renovate something else, other rooms. And I say, no, we should do this because we have a lot of money for this. So we finished WC and bathroom unit. We finished the shower unit. We plugged in a boiler. Oh, you could see the beauty. On one side there was a menorah, and on the other side there was Hanukkah and menorah. And it's just not, and it is functional. You burn a candle by candle. And you cannot see lamps on this picture, because at that point we hadn't placed them yet, but we already put them there. I think you can find the picture on Instagram. This is something quite peculiar. This is the first building of a Messianic congregation, not in Ukraine alone, but in former Soviet Union countries in general. And it's not just an ordinary building for a Messianic congregation. No, this truly is beautiful. And it was built having that in mind. And so, on one morning, 8 a.m., Konstantin Gerdov calls me, asking me about renting an apartment. There was Dennis going to our city, his son-in-law, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know what was going on.
There were so many people, and it took me an hour and a half to get from my home to the office, but it's only 5 kilometers, traffic jams, and I realized that it was war. And that was it. The war started, and I knew, well, okay, so people don't have work anymore. Okay, what is there to do? And I thought to myself, okay, people will be fleeing, people will be leaving their homes. And from the very first days of the war, I insisted that our sisters would take the kids and leave the territory of Ukraine. This is what I kept telling them. You have to leave, because we didn't know how things would play out, and if the Russian army reaches here, I mean, we don't know what will happen, because I told them, well, if flags change in Kiev, I mean, it's a matter of 2 or 3 days for the Russian army to get here. So I asked them to leave. And I knew, okay, so what should my next steps be? People were panicking, people were afraid, and from the very first days, my friends started calling me, people that I knew started calling me and asking if they could find a place to stay in Chernivtsi. Well, and at first we were taking people in our homes, the members of our congregation, but then more people started coming, and there were no more room in the apartments, in the houses. And then I said, well, in our synagogue there is a couch, and we also have this Shabbat school room, and I said, this is where you can also sleep. And then people from Dnipro city, they gave me a call and asked if they could come, and I said, sure, you can come. But they went, well, we are 23, we are a group of 23 people. And I'm like, well, that's okay, that's a challenge, yeah, but sure, you can come. We'll try to accommodate you. Another thing that I realized when the war started is that the congregation, the ministry of our congregation, Shabbat services, prayer meetings, just the usual life of our congregation, I mean, it is no more because people are panicking, people are fleeing. And when this flow of people started, and they were like, "Is there water here? Can we wash our faces?" And I went, "Well, we even have shower. We even have a hot water." And I realized that it was God who prepared everything so that people could stay in our synagogue building. Of course, it's not as comfortable, it's not as cozy as in somebody's home, but at the same time there is light, there is toilet, there is hot water in the shower available in the synagogue. I mean, that's something already, right? And after a week of the refugees staying with us in the synagogue, and we were taking their laundry to our places, and then we realized that no, this is not the best way to do that. So we purchased the washing machine and the dryer, and we put them into the room that was supposed to be the room for the handicapped. And it was perfect. There was enough of space for two machines, the washer and the dryer. More people started coming, and we were finding space for them on the stage, by the stage. All the couches that we have in the synagogue, they were occupied, taken by the refugees. And we once, in autumn last year, we bought couches for our Shabbat school. One cafe was closing and they were selling the furniture, and those couches, they had the soft pillows, and we could use them to turn, like we put two of them together to turn into bed. And we also had some problems with the linen, and we managed to find it. And then mattresses. Somehow we had that all prepared in advance by God's mercy. And we had 2 refrigerators and a freezer. And a funny story how we got the freezer. I told my team, let's buy this freezer because it's cheap. And if we do not need it, we'll just sell it and make some money. But it turned out that it has become very, very handy in this time of war. And somehow, sometime before the war started, we started renovation in other premises of the synagogue, because at first we only had this big room where we had our services and a toilet unit. And shortly before the war started, we started renovating other premises. And at first we thought of changing some of the facilities, some of the premises into a storehouse. And we made floor there. And we didn't even know that this is what would be a blessing for so many people. And the only difficulty that we are facing is that people would call us and say, is it okay that we come? And we go, sure, yes, that's okay. And but there are 40 of us. I'm like, 40? 40, and I'm thinking to myself, well, we already have 30 in this big room, the room for the services, and there are 40 more people that are coming. And I told them, well, I cannot just put you on the cold floor. I'm sorry. There were too many of you, and it was so hard to refuse them because I knew that they were on the road for 2 days in a row, and those heart-wrenching stories, like people, they are driving their car, then their engine breaks down in Bila Tserkva. This is the center of Ukraine. They don't know what to do, so they buy another car for $1,000, and they just give theirs for very, very little sum of money. And then 70 kilometers away from Chernivtsi, this engine of this other car caught fire, and it was during the night, and some bus with Indian refugees, they take them with them, and it was 2 a.m. in the morning, and our brothers went to meet them, the fighters from territorial defense, got them, and because it's curfew, so this is crazy. And this family had a baby, and it was the baby was only 3 weeks old, so it's just crazy. And when people call us and say and ask us if they could stay with us, and I say, well, we are full. I'm sorry. I have to say that we are full. Well, maybe 4 people we could still fit. And when they go, well, there are 12 of us, or there are 18 of us. And those people who were 40, all in all, I told them, why didn't you tell me that you are 8 times 5? I mean, if I knew that there were 8 groups of 5, it would have been so much easier for me to find some place for you. But at the same time, somehow God provided for so many people, and everything is so timely, everything is so supernatural. And when people, the refugees, were leaving, when they were moving on, going abroad, and they were going either to Poland or Romania, and on the first days I got a call from Misha Samsonov, the rabbi of our daughter congregation in Israel, and he connected me to this brother in Romania. And this brother turned out to be such a blessing, and at least 30 or 25 people, he helped. I would give him calls at night even, and he would welcome all the people who were crossing the border, Ukrainian-Romanian border. My mom and people who were with her, they lived for 3 days at this pastor's place on their way to the German city. Also, we were helping people get to Poland, and there is this minister, Alexander Adelson. He also was helping people get places where they were heading to. God is just amazing. He's so good. Everything was so timely. We worked as a team, a very coordinated team, and I was amazed and so grateful because of everything that was happening, and people were sticking together, and people were doing their best, serving others. And I witnessed how people were so appreciative of each other, even of the people they didn't know. And at first, when the war started, we only welcomed people we knew, people from our fellow congregations. And now, so many unbelievers are staying with us. And I never asked where they came from. And once, especially when people called me and told me, well, I have your number because this person and that person gave it to me, and I would stop them right there. And I said, I don't care. I mean, don't tell me because I'm not going to remember that. I don't care where you came from. The main thing that you're here, and we are here to serve you. And I'm reminded of the passage in the Gospels when Yeshua said, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me to drink, and I was naked and you gave me something to wear. And this really, helped me understand that this is what we're doing right now. And this was just a usual thing back in the day, to feed the hungry, to give shelter to the homeless, to visit the sick. And the disciples of Yeshua, they asked him, but when did we do that? When did we feed you? When were you hungry and we fed you? And he said, well, when you feed other people, my younger brothers, this is what you do this to me. And so many churches in Chernivtsi opened their doors as well. And they gave all their facilities, their premises, for the people to sleep in. And they feed those people. And the first month and a half, so many volunteers, so many believers help at the border. There are tents where people can get food. Amazing. I am filled with admiration towards people, towards my brothers and sisters. And I understand that people who do that, people who open their hearts, people who open the doors of their homes, their churches, they do know God for real. Because one thing is to be kind and hospitable for 2 or 3 days, but we talk about weeks. And I want to tell you a story of one sister. And every night she cooks dinner for 40, 50 people. And it's been 2 months now. And sick, not sick, and she may come and say, I'm so tired. And I go, well, maybe somebody else will do that. You don't have to do that. But nevertheless, she comes back the following day and she brings food, she brings salads, and everything that people need. Well, that's amazing, and God gives people who serve strength and this assuredness. And of course, everybody wants this war to end as soon as possible. Everybody wants peace. Everybody wants people to be with their families, to be back to their homes, but this war goes on, unfortunately. And the refugees who are staying right now, with us. They would ask us, and for how long can we stay here? And I just go, well, for as long as you need. And God works miraculously. And we have this girl, Jewish girl. She's 15 years old. She's from Kharkiv. She's not a believer. Her parents aren't believers. They would occasionally go to a synagogue. And her parents are still in Kharkiv. Her father is taking care of his mom, who doesn't walk. I mean, she's sick. And her mom takes care of 7 cats. 3 cats that belong to the family and 4 cats that are of their neighbors. And so her mom takes care of the cats, and so she came to Kharkiv from Chernivtsi all by herself, and we helped her with the school, and so she lives here with us. So there's so many of stories like that. What else can you share?
Ваших служителей, которые вот так посвящены, просто самоотверженно.
Could you tell us more stories, maybe from the lives of the ministers who work hard all the time, or maybe some stories of the refugees? Well, there are stories when people had to leave their apartments because their apartment was full of other people. Or like an example, like we gotta pick up someone, or and one family goes to one city, another city. They just gotta pick people up, give them a ride, and no one asks about the cost of the money. No, that's not a question. You just wait when the curfew hour is over and you go and pick someone up. Meaning that helping people to get to some cities. The money, gasoline is never the question. And people are so selfless. No one said, I'm full of it, I'm done, just give me a vacation. Moth. Well, just a couple of people happily agreed to go to the retreat, like to escape all of that for a couple of days. Oh, and we thought that it was all about God's presence, the prayer. I'm kidding. Well, there is a spiritual part as well, because we are spiritual people. Yeah, the presence of God is always the first place. There is a comment, we wait all guests to see them on Hanukkah.
Побывали в этой поразительной мессианской синагоге, например, отец Федор пишет. Очень красивая мессианская синагога, это факт.
There is a comment. The building is amazing. The synagogue is great. One time we were as ushpizin, as guests to that congregation. Another comment. The place is fantastic. We lived for a week at that synagogue. We were welcomed as their dear friends. And those are just some comments from people who happen to watch this program. Because if we were to ask everyone whom you have welcomed to share their experience, they would fill the chat with shaloms, good pictures, blow kisses, and all of that would be addressed to Rabbi Alexey and the whole congregation. And some of the people from the chat, they happen to be in our congregation, welcomed in our congregation when there was nothing, no beds, no mattresses, just a couple of towels. It was the very beginning of the war. You mean a couple of towels for all people? Yeah. But praise the Lord. And on their way out, people would leave some notes and cards with words of gratitude. And it's very moving.
Переживания тех, кто принимал беженцев. Я вам хочу сказать, что мы собираемся пригласить еще некоторых людей.
What a story. So many stories. And we are planning to ask more people who have been serving others heroically.
Вот, ну, я думаю, каждый, кто слушал Алексея, каждый, кто слушал,
And I think everyone who has listened to this program, to Alexey, I'm not even talking about people who have been through it, who have witnessed those events. I think that you're quite amazed.
Фактически самый раз община с супругом и разные прекрасные церкви, они служили.
People from different churches served wholeheartedly.
Просто благодать, которую Господь им заранее дал, вот этот елей, который у них накопился.
And so there was this grace that helped to serve, and the oil that they stored, they managed to pour it out on others, serving others. And so when this happens, it's a great testimony of the fact that people were prepared by the Lord for this final time, and they know why they are where they are.
Я не знаю, конечно, знаете, ну, это уже такие истории, которые станут настоящей историей с большой буквы.
These stories will become history. Many things will be parts of different memoirs. And there is a man, Motorola Smart, in the chat saying, "Oh, Alexey and his wife, they share their food with us in such a good way." Well, I don't know who Motorola Smart is. There was a terrorist with the nickname Motorola. That's why they're laughing. And another person in the chat says, "I myself am crying right now." while listening to this.
Попрошу Алексея помолиться за всех нас, помолиться, чтобы
I will ask Rabbi Alexey for us,
дал своей общине. И невероятная благодать, можно
so
сказать,
that the grace that God gave to His congregation
сделать это чудо рукотворное.
and so God has done an amazing miracle through this man, and this is quite significant for Ukraine and probably for all believers in the area. And God managed to prepare His congregation for the refugees that were to come. Let him pray for this grace to be spread and would help us in this time of trials when our faith is being tested, when our ability to serve denying ourselves is being tested. So we would love you to pray for these things to work out for us and bear a complete fruit in the life of every child, in lives of congregations and churches. So that God would use the teams that He have been preparing since the peacetime. Holy and Almighty God, we come to you in the name of Yeshua the Messiah. We thank you that you gave us life and you gave us salvation. You have removed our sin and iniquities. That's why you came on earth. You liberated us and you have transformed us with your power. And you made us truly alive. You made our hearts compassionate to the needs of others, to the pain of others. And you made us able to affect the lives of others. And my prayer is for everyone who is watching this, and for the people in our congregations, would have compassion in their hearts towards everyone whom they meet on their way. So all of us would understand that no coincidence is random, that everything that happens according to your will, and that the people that we meet because God has placed them in our lives for us to go change their lives. May your amazing grace works through everyone who believes in you. May our lives will always be opened for everyone. May this and let it not become something special, but something ordinary, everyday alike. We want to look up to you. We want to live out to you. You don't call us on the Calvary. We don't have to deliver people from their sin, but you shift our eyes on the fact that we can be an answer to many people, that we can help others, so we won't wait for an opportunity, but rather initiate the help ourselves. Work with your loving, merciful power. Work through our lives. And may thousands and hundreds of people live in Ukraine. Let them see you through our lives. Like Rabbi Shaul, Apostle Paul wrote that we are the letter for everyone to read. Let them read those letters and see your name, the name of the righteous, merciful, compassionate, selfless Father who is always ready to help. Let them see you, the glorious King, and help us to fulfill our calling and vocation to be the salt for this world, to be the light for this world. That's why you have called us. You have saved us for this. That's why you have set us free for this time. Bless your congregation, bless your sons and daughters, those who are committed to you, those who are dedicated to you. And may your name be praised. And help us to get filled with living faith, for no circumstances to put us down, but rather every day, Lord, fulfill us, fill us up, for us to grow renewed in strength, renewed in faith, so we would hear more testimonies from other people about the lives changed, about the lives saved, about the hearts healed, and the healed bodies as well. We thank you for this time. We thank you for these programs. We bless Shomer TV channel. We bless Kyiv Jewish Messianic Congregation. And we bless the upcoming retreat. And may this time be singled out for you. Help us to encounter you and give us new strength. B'Shem Yeshua, Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The pleasure is mine, Rabbi Boris. Me and my child want to help the Alexey's ministry. There is another comment from Israel. A comment from Tsarichanka. Thank you for your congregation and an amazing story. May God bless you. Praise the Lord for you. Be blessed by the Lord. We are grateful for Alexey and his congregation in this blessed time. There are more comments. And we are moved by the fact that where we are right now, it was Jews who helped us. We hug you and we hug everyone who is with us right now. And we will see you tomorrow. Something quite interesting will happen, but the most interesting thing will be at the Shabbat service. Because there are many guests coming. Some of them have already come. Here there's a guest who came from the US to Poland, and now He is in Kyiv. Our friends from Poland are on their way. And we don't know how many people will come from outside of Ukraine. And many Messianic rabbis from Ukraine will visit retreat. There's going to be God's festival and the festival of God's triumph. Despite anything, no darkness, no the enemy, no demons can stop the God's breakthrough. And we want you to be a part of it if you're in Kiev or not far from it. Vicinities maybe. Come to the retreat. We will be happy to welcome you. Join us online. You can find details in social networks. This will be for free and this will be joyful. Well, as far as I know. So see you soon. Shalom, lehitraot, Laila Tov.